Come to the, of course, unfortunately, without gun, you are
I knew you for a highwayman all along. Then it's time you learned a lesson. Our people will not stand for your barbarism.
This? Oh, Dad.
I'll never be fine.
They sir, but you, I can play turning root to aid you. You need to the foot. Then summon me. Ah, I bequeath. Use it. It will summon Torrent. Treat him.
Oi! You there. Could you help us out, Cullen?
If it isn't Nereus, the bloody finger, the end is nigh. For you. And your blood.
Well, well, well. Thought you'd just help yourself to a man's personal belongings, huh? You scheming little thief! The gods demand repentance! Cough up your coin! All of it! Wait, wait, please! I surrender! White flag and all! For Pete's sake, I can...
It was bound to happen someday. What a shit show.
Oi! You there. Could you help us out?
this tiny goal is lying, but now you can see the rays of a demigod of the raid and the elders and I pray to face. Upon the clear demigod of the raid and the elders and I pray to face.
Put these foolish ambitions to rest.
Fit to see when it seems torrent, whereas I'm there is, but I can take gathering. Bear let my hand.
Таңдауға 3 тұздық бар. Кетчуп қыша, кетчуп майо, немесе ірімшік тұздығы. Өзіңнің мега твистеріңді таңда.
With Kilo, you can build anywhere with our specialized modes and with a fleet of parallel agents.
These foolish ambitions to rest.
You made it and offered. Oh, before I fear I don't blame. Why not? Ah, to join them with the play Arden.
Oh, I can't remember very well. It is sick.
Oi! You there. Could you help us out, Kelly?
Чупа-чупс. Веселье навсегда.
Can you hear me? Oh. What are you playing? Aye, please. Are you willing? Are you willing? I just give, and I'll don't dally. Give it your all. Ah. Ouch! What are you playing at? This is no time for games. Wait, I see. I see it now. Humans all lose their wits eventually. Then there's nothing left to say, except, I am Iron Fist. How could this? Was my whole existence just a crop?
challenge Godric the Grafted, Lord of Storm. Decrepit he may be, worse yet. So.
Спасибо.
hell's wrong with you? Dirty little thief. Bounce away with the rest of it.
Another thief. Fine. Folly.
Это Альпингольд. Еще больше орехов в Супернац. Еще больше печенья в Супер...
Вы когда-нибудь задумывались, кто такой...
What did I want any... All done? Well... Oh! You dirty scoundrel. There's something off about you from the start.
Закажи новинку в приложении KFC.
барлық жағынан жақсы. Бұл біз туралы ғой. Себебі біз жилет проглайтты таңдаймыз. Жилеттің ең өткір.
Hello YouTube. In today's video, we're going to be looking at Animen's performance of Tokyo Ghoul. Now, this is a video that many of you had requested that I make, and I have to admit I wasn't familiar with Animen's and I wasn't familiar with the piece Tokyo Ghoul, but oh my goodness, what a piece it is. This is such a fascinating performance, such a fascinating arrangement. We're going to take a look at this piece from the perspective of piano playing. How is his piano playing? We're going to take a look at the piece itself. We're going to take a look at the arrangement. All lots of fascinating things to talk about today. Now, before we even begin, I just want to make the point that in no way should anything that I say in any of these videos come across as condescending or arrogant or, you know, I think I can do it better. This is not about that at all. It's helping us all, I hope, to become better pianists, to become better musicians, to listen together, and to start a conversation about these pieces and these performances, which is the way, of course, that we all grow as musicians. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. There's so much to talk about here with Animen's and Tokyo Ghoul. Here we go. All right, you know, right there in the beginning, there's a couple things that I want to point out about this video and about this channel that I really, really like. First of all, how refreshing it is to hear music like this performed on a Steinway D concert grand piano. So many of these channels use MIDI instruments, and I can understand why it's a lot easier. I mean, I use one for recording, but of course, when you're using a piece, when you're using a MIDI instrument like that, it allows you to modify things and change things after the fact. You can correct notes, you can change tempi, you can do all kinds of things. Not only does this piano sound better because it's an actual acoustic grand piano, it also was recorded in one take, and that's really, really impressive. I see no signs anywhere in any of this music that any of it has been modified. Just to get that out of the way right at the beginning, there is no sign that any of this has been sped up or changed or corrected. This was all recorded, to the best that I can tell, in one take, and that's really impressive because, as you'll see, this piece gets pretty difficult in some sections. So I think that's great. Congratulations to Animen's for doing that. Really impressive. And I also want to say right off the bat here, we notice a couple things that he's doing pianistically that really demonstrate some good skills. First of all, the way that he leans into the syncopations. If you've listened to the original of this piece, it has this real breathless quality. Da, 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 this sort of energy in the music. And he does that by really leaning into the syncopations, these notes like here, here, right? Those ones that precede the beat just a little bit, and it gives the music this extra kind of kick. And the same thing as we continue on with the... If I don't do that and I play all the notes flat, it sounds sort of like this. But instead we get da 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 da. And he does another really good thing here, which is immediately afterwards, these notes, putting them into the background. So we get a really nice layering of the sound. That's something I'm often talking about, right? We get this real cool melody.
Come on.
And then background. Melody.
Well, but of course.
And then background. So he does a great job arranging it in this section and also a really good job playing it. Let's continue on and listen to what he's got in the next section. Here it gets really wild. Take a listen to this. Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, and you know, when I played through this piece and I listened to his speed, I mean, I was just flabbergasted. This, for me to play to, it really just pushes me to the very edge of my abilities, and it's amazing. His speed through all of this is really incredible. This stuff, and then here, you know, I would probably do this a little bit different. I would keep it really dry and without pedal, but that's just a tiny little detail. You know, I think it gives it this extra little bit of energy to have this. If you listen to the original, it's sort of dry sounds. And then this part with the huge leaps. His speed here is so impressive, and it's so accurate, and it's really amazing. Now, the only thing I would say, and this is not even really a criticism as much as it is a comment, I think a lot of the places in this piece are written in a way that are almost unnecessarily difficult, in that you could rewrite them with a couple tiny modifications, and I'll show you what I mean, and make it just as impressive for an audience, but with minimal effect on the musical character. So instead of making these huge jumps, for example, dum bum bum bum, which is really hard to do, if you replace these octaves with dum dum bum bum, so I'm just playing single Ds here in my right hand. If I do that really fast, do you actually hear any difference if I go rather than playing da-dum, da-dum? So I think that's a tiny trick that you can take away if you're playing this piece on your own. Don't be afraid to, replace those notes with single notes. And I think if I were performing this piece, sort of like the way the ice skaters on the spur of the moment might replace their triple axel with the double axel if they're not feeling especially good in that moment, I would probably have both versions ready if I feel like making the big jump. Da-dum, ba-bum. Okay, great. If I don't, I can replace it with... And nobody's going to know the difference. I think very, very few people are going to actually hear any difference with that. But amazing writing, really, really impressive in terms of speed. And again, the fact that this is all recorded in one take, bravo, amazing. Let's keep going. So we always have these underlying syncopations here, and when I was playing this, I was thinking, what makes this so fun to play? And it's two things. One, it's always this dum, bum, bum in the background, but also what he does, which is really cool in his arrangement, is that he takes normal chords and adds little dissonances to them in order to make them just a little bit more crunchy. So let me show you what I mean. So we start here with this chord. Now, that's a normal G minor chord, like this, except he replaces this G with the A, and it gives us a ninth there. So we have this crunchy second. And then when we go on, we get this crunchy second also in this chord, so it's like an E flat chord, but with a little added dissonance there. Same thing afterwards. We get what would be an F chord, but we get this B flat added, which is not in the chord, and so it gives us a little bit of crunchiness all through here. Really nice crunchy harmonies. I call them crunchy. I guess musicians call them crunchy because of this sort of dissonance. It feels like just a little bit of crunchiness there. And it's a really, really nice sound, and his sense of rhythm is really, really precise. He's keeping it extremely steady, and he does a great job of that. Let's keep going. I love this section, it's so cool. And this is what we would call, if it were Baroque music, we might call it a toccata. A toccata is a piece that's written for really activating your fingers and has lots of fast notes, usually 16th notes, so something like... Here we get a sort of a toccata with this. And what he does really great, not only are his fingers so precise in this, but also the way that he really leans into the beats to give it extra energy, particularly in beats 1 and 3. So it goes da 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 da. Listen to the difference. If I don't do that, we get. If I do it. And he does a really great job of that, gives the piece tons of energy. And then we come to this next cool section, really virtuosic. Let's listen to this. And listen to the bass of that grand piano. I mean, it's so nice to have that Steinway beat just really wailing there in the background. And fabulous technique. Now, what I'd like to point out about this section, refreshingly in this piece, finally, it's something that sounds really difficult, but it's actually really easy to play. You get these arpeggios in the left hand. This... And if you practice some arpeggios before, a little bit about technique and arpeggios, it's really not that hard to play. It sounds really complicated, but it's actually quite easy. And one of the big realizations, and this is super important to realize in this piece, once you realize it, it's going to make playing it, performing it, understanding it so much easier, is that this piece, despite its complexities, despite how incredibly complicated this arrangement sounds, it's actually really, really simple in terms of harmony. We have a few basic chords, and the entire piece is built around a few chords. We have basically a D minor chord, an E flat major chord, an F major chord, and a G minor chord. With just one or two tiny spots where I have a little bit of B flat or D major. But basically, it's just 4 chords, all of this stuff. And if you realize that and think about the chords as you're playing this piece, places like this are super, super easy. So I'm thinking as I play this, you know, E flat to F to G minor and to D minor, and that's it. That's all there is. It's just really, really regular basic chords. And the cool thing also to notice about this piece is that it is basically 100% diatonic. Diatonic means we have 0 alterations from the actual key signature that we're in. So this piece is written in B flat, but every single note stays in that key of B flat. We don't have to add any sharps and flats. In fact, in this entire piece, it amazed me when I looked through it. There's actually only one alteration anywhere, and that's one F sharp in a D major chord. Otherwise, everything, the entire piece can be written without adding one sharp or flat anywhere to any note in the key signature. So again, realize this piece, harmonically speaking, also melodically speaking, is very, very, very simple. And figuring out what you're actually playing in the chords really, really makes it so much easier, orders of magnitude more easy to play. All right, let's keep going. Really, really impressive playing there. Also, the thing to remember through all of this is that when you have pieces that have tons of notes that are going all over the place, you have to keep it from sounding too heavy. You don't want it to just get bogged down in all the notes. And he does a really, really good job of this, I think, in the left hand, because we have all of these notes, dun 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 bum bum bum, going all over the place, these 16th notes. But rather than playing them all sort of equally heavily and doing this, something I'm going to play it slower so you can hear this. If we did this, all of the notes in the left hand with the same loudness, the music starts to get really heavy. Instead, he's using the left hand to emphasize the main beats, which really gives this rocky feel. Da da dum da 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 dum da 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 dum. So really hammering on beats 1 and 3 again, particularly. Da 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 dum da 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 dum bum. Gives it a great rockiness, really cool vibe, and you know, combined with those syncopations in the right hand, really, really fun and energetic to play. Let's keep going.
Go for an audience.
And again here, you know, the thing that strikes me, he's got a beautiful layering of the sound. So he's writing just a series of 16th notes in the right hand, this kind of. But this isn't the way he plays them. He plays really bringing out those top notes, and everything in the back, even though it's all in one hand, is really, really kept in the background, and it's a layered sort of sound. And this can be difficult because it's actually the stronger fingers down below that are playing the notes that we want to keep in the background, and it's the 5th finger on the top that's playing the notes that we want to emphasize. And so he does a really, really good job, I think. I'm really, really impressed by his playing, and you know, just such. I would love to hear him play some classical music too. By the way, do any of you know if he's recorded any classical music? I couldn't find any really on his channel, but it would be really interesting to hear him, because I think he's got a great sense of sound. Obviously got a great technique, and also he mentioned in the description of this video that while he was working on it, he was playing a lot of difficult classical repertoire, and that really comes through. I mean, I often say to people, no matter what kind of music you want to play eventually, it can never hurt to have a good founding in classical technique. And I mean, this is a prime example with his playing. It's such fabulous classical technique in a way. I mean, this corresponds 1-to-1 to if you were playing Rachmaninoff or Bach or whatever. I mean, really just great playing. Let's continue on.
Приятно, когда спрашивают, что бы вы хотели. Иногда хочется просто посмеяться над сериалом, собраться на праздник, провести время с близкими или уделить время себе. Все, что хотите, закажите в Glovo. Скачайте приложение, все что угодно за минуты.
Геморрой мазалаганда сарап тамақ көмек қажет. Relief геморрой белгілерін ұмытуға көмектеседі. Relief.
Bayer.
Yeah, again, this is a place that sounds really difficult. Once you realize what chords you're playing, it's actually a lot easier. Now, I have an idea here, and I'm not even going to call it a criticism because, I mean, this is his arrangement, and he does it fabulously. But I think I have an idea which I think would make this even a little more exciting here, which is, namely, we have all these phrases twice. We have this one, and then the exact same thing, and then this, and then the exact same thing. What I would love to hear is a sort of an echo effect. So da 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 dum, ba da dum, bum ba da dum, bum ba da dum. Instead of sort of keeping them all the same way that he does. So I would probably, if I were performing this, do I'm going to play it a little slower so you can hear it. Do loud and soft, and then loud and then soft, and loud and soft, loud, soft. And then I would do the same thing here. So loud and soft. And loud and soft, and keep alternating with the loud and the soft based on the different octaves. I think that would really give it a really cool kind of echo effect and energy. Let's keep going. And this is amazing. I mean, wow, what technique here! Such amazing runs. Really hard to play this tempo, by the way. I tried it. I practiced for a long time. Difficult. And again, in this section, listen to the incredible layering of the sound. So when we have, hear how he's bringing out those top notes, everything else is going into the background. We have an emphasis in the left hand on the bass, so the bass and the treble are important. Listen to what happens if I don't do that, if I play. You hear how the music starts to get real heavy, it starts to all kind of run together instead of having this really nice kind of flowing character. So that's what I would really go for, and again, that layering of the sound is, and that attention to the detail is so apparent in his playing, and really, really impressive. Now this next section, I have a couple ideas here too. Let's continue on with this. Even the speed of those tremolos, wow. And then we're back to the toccata music. Now, I had an idea on these tremolos. He has an amazing speed. I think I would change something. I mean, of course, it's possible to play this with one hand like this, but why not? And it almost actually looks more impressive, and it's much, much easier to play if you do right, left, and the same thing here. Right, left. It allows you to really fly on those arpeggios. And, you know, again, this is probably a case where if I were practicing it, I would probably practice the one-handed arpeggios. But then when it comes to actually playing it on a stage, I'd probably take the easy way out and do two hands like this. But again, this is not a criticism of his playing because he does the one-handed arpeggios really, really amazingly well. And this piece, it's sort of like an etude, you know. An etude is a piece that's written in order to be sort of also an exercise to help you really develop your skills in a technical way. And in that sense, I mean, I can understand why he does it with one hand, and he pulls it off really well. And then we get to this toccata music again, and like I said, let's listen to that. You know, we have this, the emphasis on the beats there, the precision of his playing is really, really impressive. I really love what he does with all that. Very beautiful layering of the sound here also. Really impressive. You know, I just want to take a moment to talk about something else, which is, again, I don't want to call it a criticism. When you're creating arrangements of really, really difficult music, and the point is to make the arrangement really difficult, I think sometimes we can fall into the trap, and I know because I've written a few arrangements like this myself, of thinking that we have to fill up every possible 16th note with something. And personally, I think one of the things that could be done maybe just a little bit differently with this really amazing arrangement is that sometimes there are lots of notes that aren't really necessary for the effect. So here, for example, we have these just endless chains of 16th notes. It's as if he's trying to just fill up every available spot with a note. And I think, so, you know, the way it's written is, But what if you did something like this? You know, it has maybe even a little bit more of a sense of emotion, a little bit more unpredictability, and it's way easier to play because you don't have 16th notes all the time. And there is kind of this sense in this piece that, you know, and we'll see this in the section right afterwards, that, you know, that every 16th note has to be filled up with something to do. Now, I get also, of course, there is the argument to be made with this piece. It's all about this relentless energy and this sort of driving energy, and, you know, perhaps you could say, okay, well, that is the reason to sort of fill up all of these notes. But again, I think maybe in a few places you could create exactly the same effect and make it a lot easier to play, and maybe even give it a little more kind of unpredictability if there isn't a note on every single 16th. But it's a very small detail of a criticism. Let's continue on. And this really amazes me. The repeated notes here in his left hand. Now, this is a case again where I think it could be rewritten in a way that's just as impressive for an audience, but way easier to perform. So if I were performing this, you know, you have this really, really hard thing in the left hand. It's hard to do that in tempo. You have to practice for a long time. But imagine if instead of having that kind of thing, if we did something like this, like you know, replacing all those notes in the left hand with da 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 da. This is way easier to play. It's super easy to play. It still gives us that driving energy. Just as an idea. So if you're looking to simplify this piece a little bit, that might be a trick that you can take away from it. But in terms of his playing, fabulous. I mean, he flies through those repeated notes. It is not easy to do. It is every bit as difficult as it looks if you haven't tried it. Wondering if any of you also have played this piece, and if you have, what sections you find to be the most difficult, because everybody's a little different, but this piece definitely has some very challenging parts to it. Continuing on. Still the endless repeated 16ths. Kind of a cool effect. And here, take note of those amazing jumps in the left hand. You know, it's certainly doable. I mean, it's like playing ragtime a little bit, you know, and you can do it. But again, if you want to replace it with something a little more playable, this, I think, could be just as impressive, you know, if you did something like replacing all of those crazy jumps with something like this, and really playing with lots of power in the left hand. Just as an idea, you know, it's again one of those places where I feel like the piece is almost unnecessarily difficult, in that you could really rewrite it and not lose anything and make it a lot easier to play. But again, it's his own arrangement, and he's the one playing it, and he's succeeding. He's doing everything really great. And again, you know, just to point out, like all of these big leaps, you know, let's say that they work 90% of the time. Even at a 90% success rate, it's really hard to get a take from beginning to end where everything goes perfectly. You've got to have it at almost 100%, which is why I find it so impressive that he manages to pull this off from beginning to end in one take. It's a really, really good playing, and you know, great job on those leaps from Animens. Just really impressive. And going on. You know, harmonically speaking, this piece is full of something that we call deceptive.
Рафаэлла. Там, где любовь.
Hello YouTube. In this video, I'm going to review a solo piano performance of Mad World from the second finger on. Hello friends. In this video, I was that are somewhat deceitful, duplicitous, and I hate to say it. I mean, I don't mean anything personal against Tom Piano. He's, of course, free to upload whatever he wants. But if we're talking about it in terms of piano playing, and you can think of my channel a little bit like musical commentary on the Olympics, so to speak, I like to talk about ways that we can get better as pianists, look at videos, see what works, what doesn't. If we're looking at it in those sorts of terms, there's a lot going on here that is not quite right. And it took me a while to figure out what it was, and I've got it. I'm going to tell you about that later in the video. It's obviously a lot of production. Yes, so already in this first phrase, there's a lot to talk about. The first thing that really irks me and just grates on my ears, coming to this from the perspective of a professional pianist, the sound of the software instrument that he's using is very bad. It sounds brittle, it sounds hollow, it's way too bright. If I had to play on a concert like, on a piano like this for a concert, I don't know how I would do it. I would tell the piano technician, look, you've got a lot of work to do. It sounds so sort of tinny, and I hate that sound. On top of that, there's a lot of reverb added, which is great at covering up mistakes, but it's not nice if you actually want to hear the music. So from that perspective, not very good. There's another thing that bothers me about the piano. It's missing something which is absolutely crucial in the music of Chopin, and that is half pedaling. When you begin to play the piano, you learn basically the pedal has an up position and a down position, but when you get more advanced, you realize that there are all sorts of steps in between. So when you have a phrase that sort of slowly dissipates, like this one, when you have, and listen, by the way, to how much warmer this piano sounds that I'm using, so much less brittle. Here, the sound dissipates. I want to let up the pedal slowly. His software instrument seems to be incapable of doing that. The pedal is either on or off. The notes are either held or they're not. And so when you listen, especially with headphones, you get these real abrupt cutoffs that are extremely jarring, and it's basically impossible to play Chopin's music without having some degree of finesse with the pedal. And Chopin himself actually said the pedal is the soul of the piano, and it is so true. There is, people underestimate this, but there is so much that can make or break a performance in the pedaling. So that really bothers me. And there's another thing that bothered me right here at the opening, completely different topic, but it should have clued me in to what I'll talk about later with the deception and the trickery in this video. On the very first note, he plays this note, and you'll see his right hand sort of shaking like this. And I thought, well, that's odd. I've never seen anything like that before. I've never seen a pianist do that, certainly to that extent. I mean, a lot of pianists will play a note and sort of make little circles with their wrists to sort of stay loose. But this kind of, like, extreme shaking, I didn't know what in the world that was. And you'll see it in a few other places in this video. And, we'll talk about that more later, but also I would just say right now that doesn't make any sense. What is the point of doing that? Let's go on ahead and listen to a little bit more of the playing. Here we go.
The blood of it.
No regrets.
Again, that would be a place where I would sort of dissipate the pedal slowly. So many twists and turns of the harmony in this opening of the piece. Harmonically, very, very inventive. And this, by the way, is sort of like an improvisation. Chopin was a great improviser. Now let's talk about that a little bit. What it's missing is a bit of a sensitivity for those different harmonies that I was just mentioning, and then particularly these resolutions from here, there. So this is more, and this has to resolve and be less. And they're a little too flat, I'm exaggerating a bit, but there's not enough connection between the upper notes and then the feeling, excuse me, of where we're going to in the harmony, and all of these different twists and turns, here. so much different in terms of harmony, and he can do a lot more with that. It's hard to describe exactly sometimes directly what's missing, but you can sense that he's not really reacting to the harmonies as well as he could. Let's continue on. Yeah, and this phrasing doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So Chopin writes, you know, decrescendo from here, going on as the phrase descends, and then picking up the steam, and this harmony very intense, and we land on this note, right? He sort of does, Count Piano does a completely different thing, and he sort of makes a crescendo going through this phrase. It doesn't match with the line of the music, and it is too sort of rhythmically unstable in a way. I don't know quite what to make of what he's doing with this. Let's continue on. Here, I think he falls victim to one of the classic blunders in piano playing, too much waiting between the measures. And if we have a piece in 6/4 time, like this one, if we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, the music starts to really get too plodding. And this is something that I talked about in my review of Rousseau performing the Chopin E minor prelude, where this is really extreme. I'll put a link to that video in the description. Check it out if you haven't, because you'll see an even more extreme sort of form of this problem. But what he needs to do is to think over the bar lines. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. To keep the music moving forward. If we start to wait every time these new harmonies come, so compare that with, for example, more motion over the bar lines that helps to keep the music moving forward, and it helps to keep things from getting too plodding. Continuing on. Amazing finger technique there, too. Almost too good in a way. We'll talk about that in a moment.
Списатет. Tu annexel now to sultan.
Ты не ты, когда голоден. Сникерс.
Hello, YouTube. When I came across this video this week of Rousseau performing Chopin's E minor prelude, I thought, I have to make a reaction video to this. This is one of the most commonly performed of Chopin's pieces. Interesting. Okay, so already there's a lot to talk about. Now, one of the things that I like right off the bat, I feel like he really connects emotionally with this piece. I don't hear this in everything he plays, but with this piece, I really feel like he's connecting with that sadness, with this sort of character of longing. He does a good job of really bringing out that sadness. It has to be a little more like an improvisation. Just slowly, really enjoying those harmonies, and then letting it build up steam, where Chopin writes agitato. Here, sure, no problem, move forward and so forth, but at the start, really more contrast, taking more time to let the music breathe. Now, after this, you'll see we get some really fabulous technical playing. Listen to this. Yeah, I mean, technically, it's amazing. The fingers they just fly, the notes are very, very even. What I have a bit of a qualm with is the dynamic. So Chopin writes here mezzo forte, and then suddenly pianissimo, so for example, and then suddenly pianissimo. pianissimo. And Tom Piano sort of plays this all more or less kind of at the same level. Now, let's talk about the technique.
Good heavens.
Already at this
Clench
point, I
your
was starting
teeth
to get a little
or something.
suspicious. I noticed that there were certain things with the technique that were just too
Never
good to
forget
be
what
true.
You have
Now, theoretically, it's not impossible that somebody could be sort of lacking in so many small musical details and yet have a technique that rivals or actually exceeds that of basically any other pianist on earth, but it seems very unlikely. Already in this passage here with the arpeggios, you notice it's just so perfect, so flying, the tempo just incredible, evenness, everything. What I started to suspect, and this becomes incredibly apparent later on in the video, I'll show you some concrete examples, is that this video was not recorded at the original speed. Traum Piano recorded this video substantially slower and then sped it up in post-processing. Now this is incredibly easy to do with a software instrument, which is using MIDI. It's a protocol where you basically represent the notes with digital numbers, and it makes it incredibly simple to speed up the performance, to change the pitches, to make things more perfect. You can do all sorts of things with MIDI that are a whole lot more difficult to do with an actual acoustic piano. And that's exactly what Traum Piano is doing here. So when you notice that these runs are just so perfect and so incredible, you have to ask yourself, what do they actually sound like in the original tempo? And when you take this video and you play it at about half speed or 75% speed, I don't know what speed he recorded it at, you notice suddenly that things don't sound nearly as good, they don't sound nearly as even, and that I think is the reason for the sort of the just general lack of musicality in a lot of this stuff, because he's not performing it at the original tempo. He's speeding it up and then things just sound unusual and unnatural, and that's what I was picking up on already. Now, how do you see that? How am I so sure that he's not just sort of how do I know that he doesn't just have an incredibly amazing technique? I'm going to show you some places a little later on where the hand motions are incredibly jerky. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we had this strange vibrato on the first note of the piece. And as I mentioned to you, I've seen many pianists do it much more slowly to sort of feel the note. But this sort of extreme shaking is already very weird. And I think the whole video, already from the very beginning, was recorded at a much slower tempo. And that's already why on the first note you see this kind of shaking of the hand, which normally would this note would normally look okay, but when you speed the video up, it looks very strange. And the same thing in these technical passages. I started to notice things that just looked too jerky. The movements were just sort of like, and people that have very good technique tend to have very efficient movements and not lots of jerkiness in it like this. Okay, and you're going to see that as we go on, and it's pretty disturbing if you know anything about piano playing. I'll point those out to you as we go on. Let's continue on a bit. Yeah, and I really don't like that transition because I think this has to lead into directly without waiting. He does da da da, waiting and waiting again, and it's just too much waiting. And here, I'll just talk about it right now. What I think is missing when you listen to this next section, listen to the resolution of the notes. So da da dum. These should flow into the next note, and here also da dum. Rounding off the phrases, and his phrasing is just too aggressive. It doesn't sound really nice. Listen to this. Yeah, he kind of lands on that E flat. And here also, yeah, just landing on the B flat. Yeah, again, there could be so much more sensitivity in this. Something like, more of this da, da, listening to the harmonies and how they develop. like I mentioned, he's not entirely unmusical. I mean, he has a basic understanding of the rubato. Here, very nice, nice delay. He obviously has a sense of Chopin's style. And here also, just sort of landing on those ends of the phrases. So a basic understanding of the style, but not enough sophistication. Here, for example, also, what bothers me, these phrases in the left hand should flow more, and he does exactly the opposite. He runs through these and then waits on the left hand. Other way around. The left hand is not so interesting, right? It's this accompaniment. There's no reason to drag it out like this. Just keep it moving forward. It would be much better. Going on. It's just too plodding here. Let it flow forward. Let it move. Let it move more. Okay, that's a nice rubato. No complaints there. Here, we return back to this sort of opening theme, but in a different tonality and with this E in the bass, which is very, very ominous. And Chopin writes here pianissimo. So I think he could do a much better job of really keeping this in the background, very secretive. Again, listening to the resolution of those notes so that the E connects with the D. Very, very, very soft. We'll have plenty of time later on for this piece to develop and get loud and virtuosic, but right now this has to be more secretive. But one of the things I noticed about his playing too, which bothers me a bit, is that the notes are often not together. So like here, it's like the E and the F and the F are not together. We've seen examples on my channel of pianists who do it very wonderfully, this sort of slight separation of notes, Kissin, Horwitz come to mind, in places where it makes musical sense. But why are you separating an E and an F sharp? It's not like they're two completely different lines that are doing really, really interesting, unique things. It's the exact same melody, it's the exact same octave, and so it would be much more effective to play these more together, and it comes off for me almost as a bit of a mannerism in his playing. It doesn't make musical sense the way it should if you're going to do that, which you don't have to. Many people don't like to do that, but if you want to separate the notes, it has to be in a way that makes some sort of musical sense. Continuing on. Okay, sorry, but I mean, listen to the harmonies here. The emphasis is obviously on the G sharp and backing away on the F sharp, and he does da 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 da. Everything absolutely loud. Chopin's music dies if you don't have this sort of nuance and sensitivity to what's going on harmonically, what's going on with the phrasing. It's way, way, way too flat, and that bothers me. Let's continue on. So his playing in this section is technically fine, and in fact the octaves, when I heard this, they are so fast. They are like at the level of, Marta Argerich, who's famed for her fast octaves, or Vladimir Horwitz. It's too good. And then the spot came, which we just passed, and I'm going to play it for you again so you can see where it became really clear to me that this was sped up. Now, I want you to watch the right hand when he leaps from this E down to the F sharp. There's a strange sort of twitch like this in the hand. Now, nobody would do that at this tempo. It doesn't make any sense, and you can see very, very clearly here that the video has been sped up, and those movements, which in a slower tempo might sort of look more natural, suddenly become very, very jerky. Watch this passage. Tempo very clearly sort of jerk. Very, very jerky. Watch this passage again. Here we go. Okay, did you see that? Did you see the way the right hand jerks? This is, like I said, one of the things that clued me in right away to the fact that this is recorded at a slower tempo. You'll see some other examples of that if you watch carefully. Just in general, watch the sort of for the jerkiness of the movements. There are places where it just I've been teaching piano for many years and have never ever seen any movements like that. It just doesn't look natural. It doesn't look human. It looks sped up. So continuing on. Of course, amazing octaves, right? Incredible octaves, because they're not real, they're fake. They were recorded at a much slower tempo. I wish I could do that, right? Yeah, I mean, what can you say? If he could really play like that, it would be amazing. I would say, wow, such incredible technique. Although I would point out the fact that here, Chopin writes that those notes should be connected, and he plays them both staccato, and it would be better to have more of a feeling of and also here, the gesture is obviously da-dum, ba-dum, 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 and what we get from him is da-dum, 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 completely the reversal of what Chopin wrote. But, it's just technically, it's too perfect. It sounds not real. And it's only going to get more extreme as we get into the sort of coda section, the ending section of this piece. Does a nice job of bringing out that inner voice there. Listen to the speed of those notes. Here, Chopin writes legato, so in the left hand, these notes, these octaves should be connected. And arriving here on this big chord there, I think you could do even more with the harmony there and really taking some time to enjoy it. Wait, he comes in there. Yeah, just kind of barrels through. It's a big arrival point. And also here, it needs to go from here this very soft dynamic. That could be even better. Of course, all these scales and things are incredible. He obviously has some musical training, like I mentioned. Nice feeling of the sound, a nice sense of the lines. Yeah, but this bothers me here again. There are just some small, sometimes not so small details in this music that are a little irksome. So when he has this section, by the way, I just point out again, this piano sounds so much different, doesn't it? It's so much warmer and so much less bright and aggressive sounding. But when he plays this, he hammers these first notes. And it doesn't match the phrase.
What can be made from nothing? Something remarkable, it seems. But what can take that something and make it
There should be much more sensitivity. And by the way, if you're looking for an example of what I'm talking about, go check out Christian Zimmerman's recording of this piece. Professional pianist, amazing, amazing concert pianist, and you're just going to hear so much more musicality and sensitivity to those things. Continuing on. He does do a good job of separating the right and the left hand, really bringing out the right hand, not letting the accompaniment get in the way. Yeah, and here, you know, musically speaking, we have this phrase that goes up to B flat, happens 3 or 4 times, and then to the C. It would make sense to take more time. Really show that change in the phrase. Now we come back to this opening theme again. Let's listen to that. Yeah, and again, 2 problems with that. First of all, the notes are not together. It's like separated. I don't understand the point of that. And also the resolution is missing. So the connection between D and C. You know, if you were singing this, you wouldn't do da, da, you would do da, da, da. It has to be connected, right? Let's keep going. So not together so much, the notes. Yeah, again, I talked about this in the similar place a while back, but this sort of ya-dum, da-da-dum. Listen to the tension in this chord, listen to the way it releases, the way it resolves into that harmony. And you can't just plow through both of them as if they're the same. And Chopin even spells it out for us, not only through the harmonies, but look at what he writes. He writes actually an accent here and a phrase. So everything is telling us, please do this. Please don't just plow through it as if nothing is going on. Yeah, and I wish I could play that fast. Right, it's so sort of superhumanly fast and so superhumanly perfect. And now we're coming into the coda of this piece. And let me just say in advance, when you listen to this, it sounds pretty crazy. I mean, in terms of technique, incredible. Nobody can play this well. I've heard this piece played by so many pianists. It is just not possible to play in this tempo at that speed. And the movements, you know, you'll notice also kind of jerky here and unnatural. It's interesting. I mean, on the one hand, we could say, well, you know, what could music sound like if we were not encumbered? Similar a while to that. Chopin acts. Yeah, and I wish I could play that fast. Right, it's so sort of superhumanly fast and so superhumanly perfect. And now we're coming into the coda of this piece. And let me just say in advance, when you listen to this, it sounds pretty crazy. I mean, in terms of technique, incredible. Nobody can play this well. I've heard this piece played by so many pianists. It is just not possible to play in this tempo at that speed. And the movements, you know, you'll notice also kind of look jerky here and unnatural. It's interesting. I mean, on the one hand, we could say, well, you know, what could music sound like if we were not encumbered by those sort of technical difficulties that we usually face? What if we just sort of allowed ourselves to record a piece in a slower tempo? Doesn't that sound amazing? Well, the problem is that it starts to sound not human anymore, and this human quality is the essence of Chopin's music. It starts to sound like a computer or like a robot or something just plowing through those notes. And so even though it's sort of impressive to watch, I mean, if somebody actually played like this, I would flip out. But knowing that it's not actually legitimate, honest playing kind of detracts from that effect, in my opinion. very nice, actually. Yeah, I mean, listen to that chromatic scale, the yo. He does it faster, more perfect than I ever could, and I think more perfect than just about anyone could. It's a little bit over the top, but, you know, it is still kind of cool, impressive to watch. Yeah, that really stuck out like a sore thumb. So he plays this. And you have this G in the left hand. See here, this one, which resolves to an F sharp. And what he does is, and then when he gets to the F here, F sharp, sorry, wrong note, but he just pounds it, right? G, and then as if there had been no G before, just hammers that F sharp, and that's also, you know, not so pretty. Wow, what a scale. The notes not together there? You know, when I was a student in the conservatories, we had to practice playing scales like this in thirds, you know. And if I had been able to play a scale in tenths or thirds like this, I think I would have won every prize in the conservatory. Again, it's just unnatural. It's impressive, but unnatural. That's really bothersome there. Da, 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 da. Especially when you have such a bright piano. I can't even demonstrate it on this one because it's not half as bright as his is. But where's the phrase here? Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Coming down from below and going up. When you hammer this first note, it sounds very unmusical to trained ears. Continuing on. Yeah, and watch the vibrato again on the last note, shaking that note like crazy. And if you watch these last three chords, by the way, also the movements are very jerky. So if you take a normal tempo and you do something like this, and you speed it up, you know, to double speed, what you get these movements that look sort of like you play the note, and then all the transitions look really not normal, and so that's what's happening in this last section. If you watch that video, you'll notice those things going on. So, you know what to say. I mean, obviously he has some musical training, there are some nice things, but in my opinion, the effectiveness of this video and lots of other ones on his channel are reduced by the fact that they were recorded at slower tempi. Because of that, they don't sound particularly musical. And you see videos on his channel of, you know, the complete Chopin etudes or extremely difficult etudes by Liszt, and they're played with a level of technical perfection that if it could actually be done live in this tempo would supersede anything that's ever been achieved by basically any pianist in human history. And it would be hard to imagine somebody reaching that level of technical proficiency and virtuosity and at the same time have so many troubles with basic musical concepts. So that's basically my takeaway on this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found something that you can apply to your own playing. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.
Интеллект — это не мудрость. Ладно, звучит тупо. В общем, вот это мудрость, и она увеличивает урон от заклинаний. И это просто омерзительно и казуально. А вот этот здоровенный синий питон — это интеллект, а вернее результат его прокачки. Названия статов просто перепутали местами. Не, ну вы тоже поймите, тот индийский ребенок, который переводил игру на русский язык, ввиду своего возраста не догадался использовать Google переводчик в своей работе. Из-за чего и возникла такая путаница, с которой мы с вами сейчас разобрались, что значит самое время сказать: я всех приветствую, товарищи, на очередном челлендже по Элдену, в котором я качаю только один стат. В этот раз решил выбрать интеллект, который помимо синей полоски ничего полезного не дает. Так что придется при помощи своего невероятного ума и обширных знаний в области Элдена Ринга собрать такой билд, чтобы не пришлось в очередной раз покупать новый геймпад после встречи с той красноволосой тварью. Ну вы поняли, про кого я. Кстати, на видео было потрачено немножечко больше времени, чем планировалось. Так что я решил, что не начну делать следующий ролик, пока этот не наберет 1 лайк. Но лайк должен поставить самый умный и красивый подписчик. Ясно же, что речь идет про тебя, так что давай, не заставляй там других ждать. Ладно, скучная часть видео на этом закончилась, так что давайте сразу перейдем к самой интересной теме, а именно к тому, как можно купить Elden Ring и другие топовые игры на свой Steam. Очевидным решением будет использовать купи-код, где ты сможешь пополнить аккаунт с самой низкой комиссией на рынке, притом не только русские, но и казахстанские и другие регионы. Сделать это, если что, очень просто. Всего-то нужно ввести логин, обязательно использовать промокод Хромпе, чтобы получить нехилую такую скидку, и оплатить. Никаких паролей или других данных от аккаунта давать не придется, так что все максимально безопасно. Кстати, для зарегистрированных пользователей теперь еще и действует кэшбэк на каждое пополнение и покупку. А вообще купи-код — это не просто сервис для пополнения, это целая игровая экосистема, которая делает упор на честность, развитие комьюнити, предлагает систему лояльности и постоянно организовывает различные турниры. Здесь даже можно купить игры, которые пользователям РФ в Steam недоступны. Тебе не придется париться с созданием левых аккаунтов, ведь благодаря купи-коду ты получишь их напрямую на свой RU аккаунт. В общем, все интересующие ссылочки я закинул для вас в описание, так что переходите и играйте во все новинки в Steam, как и раньше.
Это Андрей. У него строительный бизнес. А клиенты постоянно сливаются.
Ну что ж, пришло время стартовать забег. Начальным классом я решил взять астролога, ведь все дальнейшее прохождение будет строиться вокруг мудрости, которая здесь аж 16 единиц. И без лишних прелюдий, скипая абсолютно все на своем пути, не считая лошади, у которой можно забрать своего верного спутника, я направился к первой жертве. Маргет — ужасное знамение. Даже Кенни из Южного парка умирал реже, чем этот босс. Особенно если учитывать мои 600 часов, почти 20 прохождений и целую кучу извращенских челленджей, в которых мне то и дело приходилось унижать этого супостата. За это время я смог выработать 100% стратегию победы. Нужно бить и не получать в ответ. Ладно, я не дочитал ту статью в Википедии, так что шедевральной тактики не будет. Но все же, насколько колоссальная разница в геймплее за мага и миличника. Ведь вместо заучивания мувсета в поисках безопасных окон для нанесения урона, тебе всего-то нужно передвигать свою тушу со стороны в сторону, то и дело нанося тонны урона издалека. Конечно, чисто для галочки разработчик решил добавить Маргету атаку кинжалами света, которая якобы должна портить жизнь магу, но на самом деле ее легко задоджить, после чего, естественно, меня что, бесполезно укусил, продолжит наносить тонны урона. И так до победы, на которую, кстати, пришлось потратить 2 попытки, потому что в первой, как бы, ну скажем, возникли некоторые сложности, решить которые мне удалось, что значит самое время браться за ум и повышать свой интеллект, ведь дальше нужно штурмовать замок Годрика. И вот чтобы вы понимали, вероятность выиграть в лотерее 1 к 14 миллионам. Вероятность того, что этот парень попадет, еще ниже. Но он смог. С таким везением ему персонажей в Геншине крутить. Ладно, вернемся к той части повествования, которая интересна натуралам. Перед следующим боссом я решил нафармить как можно больше камней с разбитых статуй и забрать с этого парня золотой обед, который усилит мой урон на 30 секунд. Из талисманов забрал зеленой черепахой и зачем-то отправился убивать гиганта, с которого выпадает амулет танцовщицы. Спойлер, на магии он не работает, и я об этом узнаю практически под конец забега, когда интеллект вкачаю на максимум. Ну а пока, собрав все полезные и бесполезные амулеты, самое время идти убивать Годрика Старухова. Ладно, это невозможно. Даже когда пьяный отчим обмазывается маслом и играет карточку в танках на арте под эту музыку, выглядит и то более эпично и гармонично, чем игра за мага в Elden Ring. Хотя справедливости ради стоит сказать, что после перехода во вторую стадию Годрик становится опасным даже для чародея. А все из-за бесконечных ауешек и дальних огненных атак, которых он сделал такое количество, будто бы пытался из моего мага сделать куриные наггетсы, если вы понимаете, о чем я. Именно в этой фазе мне пришлось довольно-таки сильно запотеть. Хотя тут скорее сыграло то, что убивать Годрика нужно не торопясь, не спамя как типичный зритель на стриме у Хромпи и не совершая лишних ошибок. Так что спустя 5 попыток мне удалось сыграть ту самую, в которой главный герой не косплеит гуся на Рождество. Значит, дальше я решил показать вам вот этот момент, просто чтобы вы поняли, насколько плохие оценки по физике были у Бабадзаки в школе. Ну и то, как я качаю интеллект перед длительным путешествием, в котором мне придется собирать священные слезы, скупать у каждого торговца все, что похоже на титанит, воровать все семечки на пути. Ну и конечно же столкнуться с тыквоголовым парнем, который танкует весь урон своей головой, из-за чего мне пришлось поработать ручками, как бы пошло это ни звучало. А все ради того, чтобы открыть доступ к этой мамзеле. У одного тыква, у второй камень на голове. Вам бы на РЕН-ТВ, там бы вас точно оценили по достоинству. В общем, это была чародейка, у которой я, кстати, купил усиленную версию своего заклинания, в связи с чем отправился в Академию Раи и Лукарии. Здесь меня ждал довольно-таки теплый прием от моих собратьев и целая тонна полезных предметов. Тут тебе и свиток заклинаний, и иллюзорный шкаф, за которым лежит комета, к сожалению, никак не хватит на нее мудрости, и медальон на усиление магии. А если спрыгнуть с этого балкона и проскакать по камням, то можно будет забрать маску, которая дает 3 бесплатных поинта мудрости. Кстати, мне этого было мало, ведь я еще сбегал за справочником королевской семьи, чтобы можно было купить корианский меч, и забрал метеоритные камни вместе с метеоритным посохом, который для начала игры будет самым лучшим вариантом, потому как его вообще не нужно прокачивать, и он дает бонус от гравитационных заклинаний. Но это еще не все, ведь если убить гнилостное воплощение на плачущем полуострове, то можно сойти с ума от такого количества этих тварей в Элдене. То можно получить слезу, которая даст возможность танковать любую тычку. По уровню подготовки можно сделать ложный вывод, что я решил сейчас убить Малению, но на деле это все ради псины, которая весьма закономерно кастует магией, мы же все-таки в Академии магов. А вот с какого хрена она скачет так, будто за ней бежит стая панинов, объяснить